All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. So excited to see you all out here and excited to uh, present my first annual budget as the general manager here. And it's been a great few months so far, and I appreciate all the support I've had from everybody. And it's been a really good ride so far, and I'm looking forward to the year ahead. So with that, we're going to go and get started on our budget presentation. So back in 1978, Del Webb, they broke ground on this amazing development. I was 9 years old. Some of you weren't born yet that are in the back row, but I was 9 years old when that happened. I don't remember it. You know, the goal of that time really was to create this really unique and exciting adult active community. And they were looking to do really just that perfect mix of amenities and activities. And I think they did that. And I think the really cool thing is that still exists today. I mean, 47 years later, it's pretty impressive that you know, we're still in a really good place. We have some amazing amenities, and that really is thanks to you know, the leadership of our current governing board, our past governing boards, and their foresight to make sure that we have sufficient resources to keep the community association really running the way that the members expect for it to be run. And you know, when you think about all the different lifestyle opportunities we have here, I mean, and all the great things we have, I mean, it's really impressive. You think about, we've got the 4 beautiful recreation centers, and I say beautiful, you think about, again, 47 years old, and they are in great shape. And then again, that comes back to really that foresight and that planning on making sure that we have those resources to keep them in that shape. 7 meticulously maintained golf courses. You know, if you look at our golf courses, they are just beautiful, and I'll put them up against any golf course in the valley. They're great. State-of-the-art bowling center. I think it's one of the coolest things. I know Gary does. He's very, very proud of that. But I think our bowling center, our sports pavilion, really is just such a unique place and such a fun place. I enjoy walking through there and watching everybody having such a great time doing their activities in the billiards area and the bowling and all that. You know, our private library, that's a gem in itself. It is such a unique thing, I believe, that, you know, to have a private library and have the use that we get out of that, it is very well used, and really is something that I think the members appreciate having here. We have a performance theater. I mean, that's, again, something that's just unique and something that you can't replicate anywhere else. And then all of our charter clubs, over 90 charter clubs. I mean, how cool is it? That was one of the things that attracted me here when I started learning about all the stuff we have here. I thought, what a neat place that you can go and really literally do so many different things and take up any sort of hobby or activity that you may have liked in the past, or start a new one. And that's what I think is cool. I've heard so many stories about folks that have joined these clubs having never done them before and really have gotten into them. The thing about all that, though, it does take a significant amount of resources, right? Time for our staff to maintain these. You think about even just this building we're in, the amount of folks that it takes from our facilities team to make sure it's operating properly. All of our facilities, there's a lot to maintain and manage. And again, that's why we're here, is to talk about that, our operating budget, and what that looks like in order to keep everything the way that it is and continue that vision that was set 47 years ago. A little bit of numbers at the membership by the type. So we have over 26,000 owner members, over 1,100 associate members, and then over 1,700 tenant and landlord. That's a lot of members that we service on a regular basis that really get to the opportunity to enjoy all those great things I just talked about. I love this, and I'd like to see us to get to number 1. But the fact that we're in one of the top 10 55 plus communities in the United States, that says a lot. And it really, again, goes back to how we have maintained ourselves and how we invest in ourselves as members. Your dues, and reinvest and make sure that we continue to have the ability to keep on top of this list and be one of those top 10 communities. One of the things that when I was brought on that the governing board was looking to have accomplished was a strategic plan. And I appreciate their leadership on that. We were able to get that accomplished. That was actually introduced, adopted at the March 20th governing board meeting. And that's a pretty significant step. And I know that that's something that's been wanted to get accomplished for quite some time. Really what that does is set that sort of guiding light so that everyone's on the same page. The members know, the governing board knows, the staff knows, general manager knows what exactly we're trying to accomplish over the next 1 to 3 years. One of the components of that strategic plan was working on the mission and vision statement, and really working through that. So, because you have to have those again guiding principles in order to figure out where we're going. And again, through the input from both the governing board and staff, and working closely with the consultant, we were able to develop these mission and vision statements, and really use this as again our guiding light as to how we operate on a regular basis. We also then went through and figured out what are our values, what's our organizational values, and this again was from, previously I think we had, and I don't know, Katie, you might remember 10 or so values. There was quite a number of them, which really was too many. But to hone those in and really figure out what do we as an organization value. And this is what we decided as a team and as the governing board, that we're community centered, we operate with integrity, excellence, we're always looking for ways to be more innovative, and then stewardship, being good stewards of the association and the members' dues and their resources. Also, within the strategic plan, we develop the strategic focused areas. So there's 5 main focus areas that under that are all the different projects and initiatives that fall into those different focus areas. When this plan is developed back in March and was adopted by the governing board, there was a total of 19 items that are to be accomplished this coming fiscal year, so by June 30th of 2026. So those 19 different items, some of them, when I say accomplished, some of them are evaluating. They might be evaluating certain things or figuring out what direction to go on different things. So it might actually lead into another project in the future. But basically, there's 19 things that we will get accomplished this year in one fashion or another. It may be that we have to say, okay, we've researched this, and in order to go forward, this is the next steps we'll have to do, and that'll become a new action item in the future. There are 19 other items for fiscal year, so by June 30, 2027, and then a couple of them for June 30, 2028. What will happen is every year I will work with the governing board for that year to evaluate and update the items that are on there, so they are fully aware, along with the community, of course, what the progress is, where we're at with each one of those things, and then basically be able to say, okay, we accomplished these things, we recommend adding these things, and work with the governing board to say, what would you like to add? And so this is a living document. So this is not a one and done. This is not a sit on the shelf. This is absolutely a living document that will continue to be used as that guiding light, so that we all have a clear understanding of where we're headed. So I'm super excited about it, and I appreciate the governing board's leadership on that and getting this accomplished. It is a huge step, and it does absolutely provide clarity for all of us, so we know what direction the organization is heading. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cliff to give you the real meat and potatoes.
Okay, I'm a pot roast fan, so it's pot roast is the meat and the potatoes. Okay. Sure. I'm Cliff Swan. I'm the CFO here at the association. I've been here for almost 4 years, excuse me, almost 4 years, and this is my 4th budget, and happy to present that. And with that said, we'll get started. I'm going to get into some of the numbers behind some of the things that our general manager, Stephen Erno, just talked about. So when we put the budget together, we have budget goals, and these are really aligned with those strategic priorities and just the strategic initiatives that Mr. Erno just talked about. But the primary goal of our budget is that to keep the place looking nice. I mean, the place has been around since, as you can see, 1978 is when they broke ground. And there's a lot of amenities, there's a lot of facilities, 53 buildings. We have over 1 million gallons of water in our pools and spas. There's just so many different, over 300 air conditioning units. There's just so many roofs, all the things that are here, parking lots, golf courses and irrigation systems and stadium chairs and carpet. And the budget really to do that, we have to operate and we have to maintain this facility. So this budget, the main goal of this budget is to do that. At the same time, we want to make sure that we're planning for the future, and this budget accomplishes that as well. And finally, we want to, obviously at the service levels that we have, but we've got a reserve fund that helps us do that for the future as well. So the goals of this budget are all of those things to keep the place looking nice in the context of now and in the future. So all the services that we provide are here. Within these different services, there's a lot of different amenities and facilities. So for example, in the 4 rec centers, at those rec centers, we have various things: pools, miniature golf, tennis, bocce, lawn bowling, all those amenities and facilities, ping pong courts and racquetball courts. All those are within the rec centers. And then, for example, within Sports Pavilion, we have bowling, but we've also got the billiards room and Lizard Acres pub. So there's a lot of different amenities within these services that we provide. But to do that, we have to have an operating budget to do that. So we have to be able to operate all of these facilities. And then as well as repair and replace items that are capital improvement items, which is what our capital improvement budget is for. So we're going to go through both of those budgets for the next fiscal year, which begins July 1st and ends in June 30. So impacting our budget, there's a couple of things that impact our budget that we really have no control over. But we have to factor them in when we're putting a budget together: inflation and minimum wage. And as you can see, for the last, especially most recent history, if you take the last 10, 12 years or so, you can see it's gone a little wacky with minimum wage. And in the last 5 years, you can see inflation has really hit us pretty hard. So we have to take that in context when we're putting our budget together. So when we put our budget together, there's 74% of our overall expense structure is what we like to call people and power. So 64% is attributable to employees, wages and benefits, and 10% is attributable to utilities. Those are our 2 largest expenses. So to control those expenses, the exposure we have in those areas, we have to control that exposure, and we have to control those costs. And we do that in this budget. So if you look at labor, for example, we've got 4 divisions made up of 33 different departments within those divisions. So our 4 divisions are our recreation division, which is all of our rec centers and the amenities at the rec centers, the pools and all of that. We've got our administrative division, which is the staff to administer and membership to minister all the facilities and all the things that happen here on a daily basis. We have our sports pavilion division, which operates the sports pavilion, so the bowling center and billiards and Lizard Acres. And then finally, we've got our golf division, which operates and maintains our 7 golf courses. So those are the 4 divisions. Within those 33 departments, we've got 93 unique positions. So when we put a budget together, we have services that we provide and levels of service that we provide. So that requires staff. So we put together positions and job descriptions to handle those services and service levels. And then from that, we build an employee staff made up of full-time and part-time employees to carry out those daily functions. So of our 490 employees, we've got approximately 200 that are full-time and 290 that are part-time and seasonal employees. And they work approximately 624,000 hours a year. So we're a 24/7 facility here. We're cleaning and setting up and tearing down and doing all that stuff after hours as well as during the day. So it's a 24/7 operation, 365. So if we took a look at those divisions, you'll see that golf is 44% of those hours. So our golf division has 44% of those 624,000 hours. Our recreation division has 33%, sports pavilion 6%, and our general and administrative division has 17%. So if you look at the FTEs associated with that, so you've got your employee count, and then you have the amount of hours that those employees work. So 490 employees work 624,000 hours. If you equate that to a full-time equivalent, which is what an FTE is, we have approximately 300 FTEs in this budget. And you can see from the trend here how many FTEs we've had since 2022 and what the trend of the FTEs have been. And we are constantly evolving, constantly changing the needs, how we do things, technology impacts things. So we're constantly changing within those 33 departments and within those positions to accomplish what we need to accomplish. So we put on a organizational chart here. So I want to go through those different divisions. But before I do that, I want to explain what our management team is. So we've got Mr. Ernos, our general manager, and then we've got our different department heads and what departments they oversee, and then how many employees are in each one of these departments. So if we look at the administrative division, okay, the administrative division, within the administrative division is our IT staff, also our PR and marketing staff, as well as our human resources staff, the facilities maintenance staff, so the maintenance guys who take care of our facilities and our rec centers are in there, as well as our accounting and finance staff, and then finally our membership and CC&R staff. So all those 54 FTEs or 60 positions make up our administrative division. If you look at our rec division, one of our largest, we have 166 positions in our recreation division, which makes sense because we have these different rec centers and then amenities within the rec centers that have to be staffed. So we've got 94 FTEs in our recreation division. So obviously we've got Sabrina, who oversees our facilities, but we've also got Casey, who oversees our clubs and events team. That's in our recreation division. So all the events and staff that we have attributable to events and scheduling and taking care of our clubs are within the rec division as well. And then Katie oversees the library, which is also in our recreation division. And then finally, Todd Patty, who oversees our golf maintenance, also oversees our landscape maintenance at all of our different recreation facilities, and that's within the rec division as well. So if we look at the recreation division, what are all these people doing, right? So we've got tons of just different activities that go on at our different facilities, but we put this chart together to show all the non-club. So these are non-club check-ins. These are just various people checking in, not as a club member, just as a member, and what types of different activities they're doing. So over 500,000 check-ins at our different facilities, and this is what they're doing. Their fitness is the largest, of course, with our walking tracks and our workout centers and our spa amenities and things like that. 272,000 check-ins at fitness, and then pool, library, down the line. You can see that the place is busy. We're very busy. We have a lot of, and that's great because that's what you pay for, and we want our members using that. But we're very busy. It takes a staff to maintain and run and do all these different things and take care of all these different things. So if we look at our actual facility usage, so these are distinct members that show up at our facilities. So we've got approximately 28,000 owner members, as Mr. Erno showed earlier on the pie chart. Those owner members are frequenting these various facilities. And obviously our largest is R.H. Johnson, showing there at 12,406. But the thing that always just shocks me is the library and how many people we have come to our library, how many individual members show up at our library and utilize that facility. It's over 8,800 approximately members are showing up at our libraries. So at our library, and that's just an amazing facility, and I'm glad to see that our members get to use that, because not everybody can golf, not everybody can, lawn bowl or bowling. So there's something for everybody here, which is how this place was set up, and you can see that people are using the amenities. So when we talk about scheduling events, we don't hear a lot about what happens in that area in terms of why we need the staff that we have there. But if you look at scheduling and events, we have over 6,400 events scheduled here at the rec centers. So these are all the different areas that those events are scheduled. So these could just be meeting rooms that are set up for clubs. There could be a concert or a dance or a dinner or a wedding or anything. But with that said, that events and scheduling staff is busy at having over 6,500 events in a year. And then that trickles down to the staff, the facilities assistants, janitors, all the things that have to happen at those facilities to make those rooms right, setting them up, tearing them down, cleaning them, maintaining them. So there's a lot of things that are happening here at the rec centers. So let's switch over our golf division. So golf, our largest division, we split that into operations and maintenance. So Patrick O'Hare oversees our golf operations staff, and we've got 149 positions to operate our golf courses. Now, if we calculate that in terms of FTEs, we've got 49 FTEs total in our golf operations department. So if you want to roll that out over 7 courses, you basically have 7 people per course in terms of a full-time equivalent, which is pretty efficient. In fact, more efficient than we surveyed our golf courses and community courses in the immediate area, and we were consistently, on average, 3 FTEs less per golf course compared to those other golf courses. But we do it efficiently. We don't have large pro shops and big restaurants and banquet halls and things like that. So we have the ability to manage these with a very tight staff. And Pat and his team do a really good job of doing that. But they're not only running the golf courses, they're setting up tournaments. They're just doing various things to engage with the community and try and get more golfers as well. If we look at the maintenance department, we've got 86 positions in the maintenance department, and with the overtime that we spend, it's about 87 FTEs. And if you hear, these are kind of distributed out to the 7 golf courses, but Todd does a really good job with the team that he has. The courses are in incredible condition. In fact, we just had the PGA here to rate our courses, and they took the opportunity to tell us that we get a lot done with the staff that we have, and based on industry averages, we have about 11 per golf course, and industry average is 13 to 16 people per golf course. So Todd does a lot with what he has. In this budget, we have 87 FTEs for golf maintenance. So golf is busy. You can see here for the rounds, the bar has been set at 320,000 rounds of golf in our 7 golf courses, which is pretty amazing and pretty incredible that we have that type of capacity at our golf courses. And you can see what makes up member and non-member, but 82% is member golf and 18% is non-member golf. So that non-member golf is great because every dollar we generate from non-member golf helps subsidize dues. It helps subsidize that amenity because golf is an amenity in the community. So anytime we can get money from the outside to help support golf, it's a good thing. And finally, last but not least, is Mr. Zarek and the Sports Pavilion. We've got a wonderful bowling center, and we'll talk about bowling a little bit later in the capital improvement budget. But again, we got a great staff there that takes care of everything, and we'll talk a little bit about the capital budget for for bowling a little bit later on. So when we take all of our staff, we do a wage survey every year, and we use a company called Pay Factors. We use Employers Council, but they use a large database, and the database is run by Pay Factors, and it has all these different positions within that database. And so we align our positions with like positions in that survey, and we generate how do we rate, or in terms of how we pay compared to industry average. And overall, we're 12% below the average when it comes to pay. So when we assess our employee pay based on those positions and pay factors, we end up at about 12% below the average. We're always, we're looking to get better. We have to be competitive in the labor market, but a job is more about more than pay. So we like to provide a good environment here. Our benefits are good. So we feel like we're in pretty good shape, but there are some things that we need to do and positions that we need to address to make sure we stay competitive and keep our retention rates good. So when we talk about the competition and retention, I snapped that Panda Express when I was waiting in line for my rice bowl, and it's just this is what we have to compete with in the labor market when you talk about laborers and management and supervisors and people who manage people. And fortunately, what they're advertising, we don't have to pay, but we've got a wonderful part-time staff that live in the community that, again, it's about more than just pay. So if you can roll out of bed and come to work in a 5-minute drive, there's value to that. So fortunately, we have that resource within the community, which helps us keep our costs down and also provide benefit to someone who lives in the community to get out of the house and make a little extra coin and get free golf. So I think that's a benefit as well. But this is what we have to compete with. And the higher skilled we get in our positions, the more competitive we have to be. So in this budget, we'll talk about some of the notables for wages and what we're doing in wages and benefits in this budget. So in this budget, we're accounting for a cost of living as well as a merit overall increase bucket of 4% to our wages to help us stay competitive, as well as address minimum wage as well as in that. And so we have to address our minimum wage increases, the cost of living increases, as well as merit increases and those assessments that we have to do throughout the year when we have turnover in positions or when we need to reevaluate a position in terms of what we pay. So in this budget, we have a 4% increase to handle that, as well as minimum wage. There's also 3 additional FTEs in this budget. And then we've got our workers' comp insurance, which is going to increase, a 20% increase. We had a presentation on workers' comp at our February BNF meeting? I think it was February. Yep, the second BNF meeting in February. If you want to watch that, good news is we're trending down. I won't get into too much detail, but there's something called an EMOD that's impacting us negatively, and once we get a certain year flushed out of that, we could be looking at a reduction actually at that point. So, but a 20% increase there, and then health insurance increase 8%. As you all know, personally, insurance has just gone up, and it's gone through the roof for everybody, and not just businesses, but individually. So we feel like we've been managing that pretty good here, and in the budget also is a property insurance increase of 8%. But again, compare that to Sun City, they had a 53% increase in their general liability insurance, which is just astronomical. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars to us if we would have had that. So we're doing a good job, and we're taking advantage of all the things we can to keep those rates down. All right, so looking at our overall operating expenses, there's an overall 3% increase in non-payroll items. Some of those are just simply, there's projects and maintenance items that we have to do this year that we didn't do last year, and vice versa. But it's not just an overall 3% increase because we say, oh, inflation is 3%, so we're going to add 3%. So I want to go through some of these individual items that are causing this increase. And so, for example, in utilities, we did put a 3% increase in there. Man, we've had some hot summers the last couple of years and falls, and we just need to make sure we do the right thing there and plan accordingly. Now, if we don't, we have milder and we experience the savings at the golf courses with the irrigation systems and the new pumps that we're putting in and things like that. That's great, but in terms of utilities, we've just been hit really hard in the last couple of years. And again, that's 10% of our overall expense structure. So it's a large cost of the association. So there's a $55,000 increase for utilities in this budget. Fortunately, we have an 80,000 reduction due to the new phone system that we put in. We're on now on an internet-based phone system, which has allowed us to save money on our telephone with our phone carrier. So that's creating $80,000 savings year over year, which is awesome. And that was a capital improvement project for approved last year for this fiscal year it was about $100,000, but the return on that is already been met essentially with this year and next year. So that's great. Trash removal. So there's some golf course cleanup things that we're going to be doing. Again, with the heat, the vegetation, things that have impacted our golf courses, there's just some work that we have to do there, and that's going to cause an increase in our trash removal at those golf courses, as well as down the repairs and maintenance category. We don't have the staff. We're not at the staff levels where even at full staff capacity that we could take care of all the things that need to get done on the golf course when it comes to kind of stripping out some of that old stuff and dead stuff that's happened because of the heat. And frankly, it's just some of the vegetation and trees they've met their useful life. I mean, they're 30, 40, 50 years old. Some of these trees were 5 or 6 years old when they planted them originally back in the early 80s. So anyway, we're kind of cleaning out some of that stuff, and it's going to unfortunately cause an expense increase for us, but to keep the place looking nice and to keep on with our budget goals and our priorities, that's something we have to do. So we're going to invest the funds to do that in this budget. We've got a $52,000 increase, so we have to paint the walls on El Mirage, and a large part of that $52,000, $30,000 of it is just strictly because of that. We have to do that, keep the place looking nice. So that's in this budget. That's causing an increase. We did reduce by $17,500 based on the seal and stripes that we're going to do year over year. Again, we got to keep the parking lots. We have to maintain them so we get the best useful life out of those and keep those strong. We just invested a ton of money over the last 5 years in pavement and mill and replace. So we got to keep them sealed up, keep those cracks sealed up, and keep them looking nice. All right, in the landscape maintenance category, we have a $49,000 increase. There's some drain tile work and French drains that need to be done along the cart paths and the fairways on the golf courses. And Todd and his team are going to, most of that will be done in-house, but there's some that we'll need to sub out for that. So that's in this budget. That's a $49,000 increase year over year. We fortunately have a $27,000 reduction. So with the efficiencies from the irrigation projects, we're also able to repurpose some of the sprinkler heads. So for example, Echo Mesa is going through their irrigation project. All those sprinkler heads are reusable for us. So we'll be able to allocate those throughout our other courses. But the other benefit of the irrigation project is all the new sprinklers that get put in get a 10-year warranty. So we have a warranty on all those sprinkler heads, which saves us in operating costs and equipment and supplies for the sprinkler heads. So there's a $27,000 reduction in our sprinkler heads, our sprinklers in this budget. And then a 20, we're going to increase our chemicals and fertilizers. We're based on the research that Todd has done. He's anticipating an increase in those petroleum-based products for chemicals and fertilizers. So we've increased our chemical and fertilizer budget by about $20,000. Fortunately, grass seed, based on what we're hearing, is going to come in flat year over year, which is very good because we spend about $600,000 a year on grass seed. So if there's an increase there, it's significant. So we feel like we can keep that flat year over year. Now in the equipment category, we've got a $19,000 increase, and that's basically equipment and tables and chairs and things that need to happen at the sports pavilion, in the bowling center, in the billiard center, some equipment, and we've got some fans. We're going to replace the fans in there. And then in the library, there's just some really dated old furniture that we've got to kind of clean out of there. And we want to do some other things with some partition walls to get the best use out of that space. And so there's a $19,000 increase for some equipment in those two areas. We have a $55,000 increase, and that's due to that 8% property and casualty insurance rate increase. We are going to have a presentation on that actually in May 20th. at our Budget and Finance Committee meeting. So if you want to hear about property insurance and liability insurance, show up at that Budget and Finance meeting. We'll have Hayes here to explain what those increases and why we have those increases. There's actually quite a few changes in our property and liability insurance. Insurance companies we used to have $5 million in flood that was just added to they just gave to us as part of our property insurance, and now they've backed that down to $2 million because they just don't want the exposure. Not that we have a big risk for flood here, but they're just doing things like that, So you'll hear about all those changes in the insurance and what we've done to mitigate some of that stuff at that May 20th Budget and Finance Committee meeting if you want to get some details on that. But $55,000 increase for our property liability insurance. On the operating expenses category, $48,000 increase in service contracts. We've got some IT enhancements that we're looking at doing in service contracts and taking advantage of some of the efficiencies that we can take advantage of through those service contracts and provide better service to our community members. And so we're going to invest in some of those things. That's a directive and one of our strategic priorities as well. Remember, there's 19 strategic items in this operating budget. So those are all built into this budget as well, and funded in this budget. But we've got $48,000 increase there. We've got a $46,000 decrease because we had a security camera project this year that we're not going to have next year. So that's creating a positive variance for us at a reduction of $46,000 in that operating expense category. And then in the legal and professional category, we put a $15,000 reduction there. There's some outside services that we had this year that we're not going to need next year, and that's creating that positive variance, which is decreasing our expenses by $15,000. And then the employee-related category, again, one of our aligned with strategic priority and in terms of making sure that our employees are properly trained, we're properly safe, as well as we're properly outfitted. So there's some increases: $6,000 for uniforms, $7,000 for employee development, and $4,000 for safety items that just flat out the costs have gone up for those safety supplies. So that's in this budget. I will say that the employee development is really important. If you look at all the different lines of business and all the different services that we provide here, we're just not a simple HOA that's got a couple of parks and we got to replace the swings and replace the wood chips in the play areas and a couple roundabouts, and there's a tremendous amount of things that we provide here, and those services and things that we provide take not only staff, but they take staff that need to be trained and they need to be licensed and they have to be properly informed on certain things, and with that we have an expense for employee development. And again, we're not just developing people that know how to run bowling alleys or people that know how to run golf courses. We're developing various theaters, libraries, just on and on. So there's a lot of things that impact our expense structure that we have no control over, that inflation thing that I talked about earlier, but as well as just the cost for these various recreation items and various amenities that increase. So we have to budget for that, and we have to make sure we're doing right to make sure that we're safe, we're properly safe, employees are properly trained, and ultimately protecting the association, protecting our reserve fund, keeping our insurance rates down. There's a return on all this investment. Okay, so cost management highlights. So attached to this presentation, we'll be posting this presentation on the website, but we'll also attach to that, one of the things that we'll attach will be a detailed listing of some cost management savings items that we have. Also will be I'm presenting the expense categories, but within those expense categories, there's main expense line items. Attached to this will also be the detail of those expense categories by main expense account line item. So you have that information. You can compare that for the last 3 years and what those expenses have done for the last 3 years as well. And then finally, the employee headcount and org charts will also be attached. But that said, let's talk about some of the cost management highlights. Cost management is, first of all, it's in our strategic plan to be efficient, to do things in an efficient manner, to optimize revenues, to minimize expenses. That said, it's part of our culture. It really is. So when we look, it's built in our policies as well. So when we look at our policies and we look at our culture, these are some of the areas that we really work hard at on a daily basis. So when we're price shopping and getting competitive bids, that's massive. And policy says anything over 5,000 requires 3 quotes. Well, I will say we bid and cost out things under 5,000, down to toners and pens and sticky pads and everything, printers, all the things that laptops, all the things that we utilize in our operating budget. We do the best that we can to shop out the best that we can. For example, if I said toners earlier, so the finance department, Terry, has taken over all of the toner purchasing for the whole facility. So every office, whether it's in golf, whether it's in maintenance, we've put all consistent printers in place, and we've got 3 different areas that we bid toners out, and they all change every day. So Staples might have it for one price, Amazon might have it for one price, Glendale Office Supply might have, and those prices change every day. But we're on that. We're literally pricing those things out every day as we're purchasing to try and save money and to do it in the most efficient manner. That's just one example of that. Obviously, we have our competitive bidding process. Anything over 50,000 goes to a sealed bid as well, and all of our capital projects and everything that happens here in a large scale also goes through that same process to try and maximize what we get for our dollar. As well as if you look at our fixed asset management system and our reserve study. So we've got a reserve study that's now up to 1,400 line items. And within that reserve study, we're constantly evaluating and assessing those items to determine, can we get more use out of a particular item? This carpet's a good example. Carl talks about it all the time. This carpet has been up for repair for the last 3 years, and it looks perfectly fine. We're going to continue to not replace this carpet in this year's annual budget because it looks great and it's wearing really well. So we manage that asset. The fact that we have that list of assets and we're able to manage that ahead of time as we're going through our budgeting process creates a massive efficiency for us. One great example is our irrigation projects. Okay, irrigation system. Yes, there's water, water laws from Arizona Department of Water Resources that we have to abide by, and that's driving, a lot of the things that we're doing at our golf courses. But irrigation systems are fixed assets. They do have a useful life. They have to be replaced. Period. Flat out. Has to be done. Okay? So, irrigation systems. The great thing about an irrigation system replacement, you can go over at Echo Mesa right now and see the pipe that they're putting in. That's 100-year pipe. Okay? Our current irrigation systems have a useful life of 30 to 35 years. We're doubling that now with the new equipment that we're putting in the ground. And what that's doing is that's helping us. Yes, we're getting twice the life out, but that's half the reserve that we have to put aside every year for an irrigation system. So when we get those all completed, the savings to the reserve fund is incredible. So you can basically take a whole irrigation project, you get twice the life out of it. So $5 to $7 million inflated for 70 years is the value of those irrigation replacements. It's incredible the savings that are taking place. But that's cost management. I mean, that's part of what we do here. We talked a little bit about it earlier, leveraging technology. We have a employee here who's been here for 6 years, I believe, Pete Finelli, former CFO. He's retiring, and We're not going to replace his position because we found a software program that'll help us manage our reserve study, and then we can take the other tasks that Pete's doing and distribute those throughout the rest of the finance team. And so we're going to do that. And we're that software costs us about $12,000 a year, and that's a savings for us. And technology is creating that efficiency for us. And so that's just one example of utilizing technology to do that. Also, we've got our operating cash. So looking at revenue opportunities, idle cash is one of those things. Right now, with the short-term rates being at over 4%, we're taking advantage of that in the market and generating $250,000 a year in interest income on our just operating cash that we have. Non-reserve funds, but just operating cash that we use to operate the association. And so just taking advantage of things like that helps as well in cost management and revenue efficiency. So I encourage you, we'll attach the cost management. I think it's about 6 pages of just various things that we've instated this year, we've instated previously that we continue to do, just to give you some examples and some details into what we do on a daily basis here. All right, so we talked about all the expense impacts. So with those expense impacts, we have to cover those, essentially. We have to cover those expense impacts. So I want to talk about some of the proposed increases in dues in this budget to help cover those increases. So we're looking at increasing our annual member dues, $28. It's a 4.9% increase, and that'll allow us to continue to put 7.5% of our dues in our reserve fund allocation, as well as help cover the additional costs that we talked about. We're looking at golf. We're fortunate, we're not just dues here. We have a lot of different levers that we can pull to generate additional funds. And golf is one of those areas that we have a couple levers to pull. So we're looking at our golf rates. We've talked to our golf committee, and they've approved these rates, or they've not approved, but they've recommended for these rate changes to help cover those additional costs. So in this budget, we've got 320,000 rounds of golf. Again, that's been the trend of golf for the last 5 years, so we're gonna put that in the budget. When I got here originally, they used to budget 280,000, I think we did 275 one year, 280, and now we're doing 320,000 rounds of golf, which is pretty incredible. But golf generates $12 million a year for us in our budget, and golf is an amenity. Okay, I can't stress that, because some people think that because they don't golf, that their dues shouldn't go to help cover golf. Well, you live in a golf community. It's one of the premier golf communities in the country. Okay, golf is an amenity to this association. That's why they put 7 of them in here. Think of it as 7 parks throughout your community. There's people that golf that don't use pools, for example. Well, I did a cost analysis. Golf at a $1.1 million operating cash outflow. Some people like to call that a loss. If you want to call that a loss, call it a loss. That's $156,000 per golf course. All right. Pools cost us $1,025,000 a year. If you divide that over the 4 rec centers, that's over $250,000 per rec center for pools. Okay, golf at $150,000, pools $250,000. They're both amenities. Okay, these are both amenities in the community, just like all the other things. Lawn bowling, anything out there, anything that you can do here in the community, clubs, all the different things. It's all amenities within the community. We're fortunate that we can generate additional income for golf to help pay for itself, which is a wonderful thing. And so we're looking at increases for our member golf rates. We're doing a $6 increase during peak season, and then a $3 increase during the transition season for our members, for the greens fee that they pay. I'm sorry, for our non-members. Sorry. I'm glad you're paying attention. Thank you very much. It's getting late. But yes, for our non-members, that's what we're looking at increasing for golf. And then for our members, a $1 increase during peak and transition season. Okay? And then we have 2 golf carts where they don't pay a greens fee when they show up. Those 2 golf carts are going to go up. Unlimited will go up 100, and Twilight will go up $50. And then finally, we're increasing our snacks. I mean, the cost of snacks is just. I mean, I went to Panera and I had lunch, and I got a bowl of chili, and I said, let me just throw a fountain drink on it. It was $3 for a fountain drink. $3. And I was like, this is crazy. So I got a water cup, but the point is the cost of these snacks have gone up, and so we're going to increase it by 25 cents for our snacks and soda and those types of things. If we look at our bowling center is a little unique in that it actually generates positive cash flow for us to the tune of about $100,000 per year. The bowling center. Now, we've made some major investments, and within this budget, we've also got major investments in the bowling center. So, for example, last year we put in brand new bowling lanes and ball returns last year, and we've got a world-class bowling center. In this budget, you'll hear about the changes that are being proposed for the pin setters. But that said, we want to continue to enhance that bowling center and have it pay for itself. So with those enhancements and all that, we're proposing a 25-cent increase per game for our resident and league bowling rates. And then for our non-member rate, we're going to increase 50 cents. And those non-members that have a league card, we're going to increase that by $10. And then we got a couple different changes in the locker rental rates and shoe rental rates. But that'll generate an additional $65,000. Okay, so and then finally for APFs and interest income, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier. We're going to generate $157,000 this year because we have to pay for that irrigation project out of our operating cash. So it's going to decrease the amount of cash that we'll have free to invest in short-term investments. So that'll go down by about $100,000 this year, but it'll still generate $157,000 in interest income from our operating cash. And then on our APFs, we're proposing a $200 increase on APFs, and that's assuming 1,100 transfers, home sales within the community, which is the average home sales that we've had for the last 10 years, 1,100. So overall operating budget, here are those expense categories. Like I said, I'm going to attach to this some detail within those categories. So for example, in utilities, you'll be able to see what electric and gas costs us, what does trash cost us, more detail of each one of these categories, expense categories. So a 4% overall increase in projected 25 versus the budget for next year. And then to balance the budget, the proposed fee increases to balance that budget at a 4% increase overall in revenue. And then again, that'll return $1.2 million into our reserve fund from operations. And then you'll see the APF fees up at the top at $5.9 million, and overall total capital related of $2,073,000. So I'll talk about the cash impact of that later on in the presentation. But before we do that, I want to show you. We want to present you with the capital improvement projects, because overall, when you take the cash that's generated overall and subtract out the capital improvement, it'll tell you the total cash impact to our reserve fund. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Dave. He's going to come up here and talk about some of our capital improvement budget.
Good morning, everyone. As introduced earlier, yeah, I was just getting to that. That's okay. Dave Johnson, I'm the new capital projects manager. Carl retiring here shortly, end of this week. Anyways, so he's been here for 8 years, I believe. And I've been here for 37 days so far. So I know a lot about this budget. Actually, I've been doing my best to do my homework. So First thing, I would like to give a little perspective to the process. And we've all been through that in the last several months since September. I've done the research that we've met 30, oh wait, where was it? Forgive me. Really apologize. There has been 64 meetings for all the committees from September until now. The amount of hours, I just took an hour per meeting, focused on this budget, and in particular for my role, the capital budget. It's 3,064 hours that was spent focused on developing and vetting and presenting, questioning, and finally getting to today, where we've got a budget that has 6 new capital, those color blocks as we call them. We've got 6 new capital projects. We've got 23 in the blue, that's our repair and replacement projects. We've got another 22 in the golf and landscaping projects in the green, and then we've got our allowances for the unexpected capital projects. So 3,000 hours. I had to have a comparison since I don't have a history working in this context yet in a community. So my experience is in construction, so I would have been the general contractor that was hired to do the projects. To do a $5-6 million budget, I would have about 30 hours to do. And I would have maybe, if I was lucky, 2 other people to review it. And so I might get 4 hours, even maybe 8 hours out of them. That equals about 2% of the amount of time we spend putting this budget together to get to this point. That blows my mind because that is so thorough. And anyways, I'm fascinated by it, obviously, because the construction industry moves at such a fast pace. The reason we move at the pace we do here is for quality of life. We want to really make sure that we are thoroughly working through every project, every dollar that we spend, so that we're contributing to the very best for the community. So with that said, sorry, I wasn't nervous until I got up here. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. My bad. And this is where we've ended up after all those 3,000 plus hours. 440,000 of new capital projects. We've got 1.9 million worth of repair and replacement projects, 2.7 million of golf and landscaping projects, and we have the 420,000 in allowances. So that's our total budget that we've ended up with. We'll just highlight a few of the projects that are over 50,000. First is the new master plan. This is going to involve a lot. We've been over this thoroughly, but it's going to involve a lot of research, community surveys, member engagement workshops. We're going to have stakeholder meetings. There's going to be a lot of assessment and evaluation. We have to think in terms of not just this generation, but the next 1 or 2 that will be retiring in Sun City. So there's a lot of exploration that needs to go on to figure that out. And 250,000 was a placeholder, and we've discussed that as well. Palm Ridge, we're going to be painting the interior of the pool, all the exposed ceilings and the walls. It's past its useful life and ready for a refresh. We're going to be hiring a general contractor for that. simply because it's more than just painting. We're going to have scaffolding. There'll be interim cleanup, project safety. So we're going to have that done at Palm Ridge. And then at Beardsley, before my time, I guess we removed some trees that needed to be. And so now we don't have as much shade. So we're going to propose 4 new cantilever shades to go at the Beardsley mini golf in different places to provide shade while the new trees that'll be planted will take their time to grow. And then we've got our recreation items that were over 50K, and that would be now Gary's turn.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Big one.
Good morning, everyone. I am Gary Zarek. I am the new sports pavilion manager. Been here 9 months, so this is my first meeting. So the biggest thing on the docket for the bowling center would be the new pin setters. The pin setters that we have right now are over 20 years old. And they have been in for, we figured on the average of 300,000 games a year, which means that each one of those machines has cycled 60 million times in the time that they've been installed. So I believe that we've got our life cycle out of them. Parts are becoming rare to find. Things are breaking that haven't broken in the past, and it's time to look at something else. Brunswick will manufacture these. It is a 4-month order from Hungary is where they're made, and they would be shipped across the water to us. And so it's a big ticket item, but it's something that has lasted us 20 years. So I believe that the next set of pin setters will also be a 20-year life cycle. Oiling machines, we are in the docket for 2. The first one that we own is from 2008, and the next one is from 2016. The technology of those machines from that old are like televisions. The difference between a 2008 machine and a 2016 machine is increasingly different. You can't even put the same oils in those machines. Parts are becoming extinct. So our suggestion is to just buy 2 like machines that will give us about a 10 to 15 year life cycle, and we can stock 1 set of parts, and it would be a lot more economical for us, because in our bowling center, where we have 32 winter leagues and 18 summer leagues, we are very, very busy. These machines run 2 and 3 times a day, so we need to have 2 to have 1 as a backup constantly. Masking units were the first thing we were doing. We did a Sun City West vote to see what 2 masking units that they liked. I don't have pictures of them available to me today because, frankly, I forgot to bring them. But those would be done also as a July project. And then we have the gutters, the capping, the ball track, the bumper system, the fall lights. Most of this material is original equipment from 1979. It has not been replaced in many, many years. So rather than to do a piecemeal of a portion here, a portion there, and continue to do this year after year, the best way to do this is do it all at one time. Get it done, be finished, and this will last us for a long, long time, where we don't have to invest any more money into the bowling system. This will keep us going for a long period of time. It seems to be the best way to do it. The masking units, by the way, they look really nice when you're standing up on the concourse, but as you get down there, you can see the age, the tears, the fadingness of the ball of the masking units. So they are 18 years old, not 10. I did find some pictures of some gentlemen shooting 300 games where they had those masking units as the backdrop, and they were from 2007 and 2008. So they have They have certified their use as being a good quality product, and the idea is to replace them next July along with the pin setters. And I think that's me. Oh, sorry, Dave. No.
Okay, a couple more items on the capital repair and replacement list. We've got cardio equipment. Every 5 years, we replace the cardio equipment in the exercise or facility centers, and we're replacing 20 pieces of the existing cardio equipment at the Kuntz Fitness Center. Also, we are replacing 42 of our AEDs. They should be replaced after 10 years, and we've got 42 out of our 60, I forget exactly the number, but 42 of them are beyond the 10 years, so we are replacing that. Okay. And now, golf.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning. My name is Todd Patty. I'm the Environmental Services Manager for Sun City West, which entails the care and maintenance of the 7 golf courses and the landscape division throughout Sun City West. So today I'm going to just review our proposed capital projects, improvement projects, and also our equipment replacement plan for both golf and landscape maintenance. And we'll start with our landscape maintenance project. We're proposing to redo 2 of the greens over at Lawn Bowl. We have 4 greens in total over there, so we'd like to do 2 of them, regrassing greens 1 and 2. They're 40 years old, and I can tell you they are really worn out. They're ready to be replaced. We would remove the existing grass with about 4 to 6 inches of root zone mix, and we can use this root zone mix over on our projects, on our shoreline projects, as backfill behind the walls. We would grass with Tiff Eagle. That's one of the latest and greatest Bermudas that's out on the market right now, and I would expect to get 40 years plus out of these new varieties as well. So the cost is $337,459 for both, or if you want to break that out, it's $168,000 per green, and we would propose to start that in April of 2026. And then our capital improvement projects for golf course maintenance, we're proposing Stardust Irrigation Turf Reduction Project. This would be phase 1. This is similar to what we did over at Grandview and also what we did at Echo Mesa this year. That's all the mapping, the GPSing, all the permitting, and that does include a new pump station with that for $536,000 and proposed start date of July of 2025. I just mentioned the shoreline projects hardscape that we have over at Deer Valley on hole number 18, and also at Desert Trails on holes 14 and 18, where we'd use that material that we generate from the lawn bowl greens. And those are $285,000 and $295,000, and start date of June of 2026. And then cart path slurry sill, repairing the cart path over at Echo Mesa. As you know, we're doing a big irrigation project right now. And so there is a little bit of damage to the cart path. So as soon as they pull out after the project, we would come in right behind them, right before overseeding, and do the slurry sill and a little bit of patchwork on the cart paths. And then our equipment replacement plan that we're proposing for this year. For golf maintenance, we have 22 units scheduled for replacement. Now, these are all listed on the reserve study. And what we do every year as part of the budget process is we go through that list, and if we feel that we have units that can go out another year or 2 years, we'll certainly push those out. Average age is about 18 years plus on this equipment that we're looking at replacing, range of 10 to 31 years. I think we have a dump truck out there still running around at 31 years. And then total replacement cost, and again, this is for all 7 golf courses at $826,000. If you want to break that out per golf course, that's $118,000 per golf course. And it is a 4.5% increase over last year. Just like everything else, prices are going up. So we're looking at that 4.5% increase. We did defer one unit. It's a Procore greens aerifier for $41,000. And then we eliminated completely off the reserve study this year was a fairway aerifier for $34,943. And our vehicle replacement, this is trucks and golf carts, utility vehicles. 7 units are scheduled for replacement, average age about 12 and a half years, and they range from anywhere from 12 to 15 years. Replacement cost at $164, and again, a 4.5% increase over last year. We did eliminate a dump truck completely off the reserve study for $74,000 this year. And then in our landscape maintenance, utility vehicle replacement, and equipment, we have 2 utility carts scheduled for replacement. Those are like the Workmans or the carryalls that we use on a daily basis to get our work done. 1 walk behind greens mower that we use over a lawn bowl, and the average age on that list is about 11 years plus. Total replacement cost at $94,177. We did defer 4 units off the landscape maintenance list: bank mower, tractor, utility trailer, and 1 greens roller for $140,000. And then 1 unit was eliminated from the reserve study, and that was a bank mower for $54,000. So if you look at the total deferred was $182. This is both golf and landscape maintenance. And then we eliminated $163,000 for a total of $345 deferred this year and eliminated. And I'm going to turn it over to Golf Operations Manager Patrick O'Hara to go over his list.
All right, good morning. My name is Pat O'Hara, Golf Operations Manager. I've got a couple of slides for replacement of equipment in my department. We're requesting for 30 new golf carts out of our fleet of 154. These would replace our 2013, 2015 carts that we currently have. Great thing about this, our average age of our carts would go down to 6.5 years. It wasn't that long ago that they were averaging about 12 years of age. So we're getting caught up a little bit. Also requesting 7 janitorial carts. We have a cart at each facility that is used primarily to go out and service the bathrooms out on each of the golf courses. We've got some that are as old as 18 years. So we're fixing those on a regular basis. And then 1 additional player assistant cart. So those are the items that we're looking to replace. Okay, thank you.
Okay, within the budget, we also have $420,000 for allowances. These are unexpected capital items that show up. We try to put some categories in here that where those different things come up throughout the year. I will say allowance funds are they're mainly used for repair and replacement items that we think we were going to get the useful life, another year of useful life, but we just didn't. It didn't make it. Okay, so usually everything that happens in allowances is tied to a reserve item that would be in a future year capital budget anyway to be replaced. So these aren't, now there are some new items that come up in there. An example of something that could be new is we may decide that through a planning or something like that, that we need to do some, have someone come in and give us an estimate on something, or do some consulting or something like that, do some design work that may happen, but that would be tied to like a future project that would be part of a strategic plan or a master plan. Another example would be, for example, our water heaters at R.H. Johnson had to be replaced. Those used to be $2,800 a piece, and they're now $5,300 a piece now in today's dollars. So that basically became a reserve study item, meaning it had an asset value of $5,000 and a useful life of at least 5 years. So we have items that become reserve study items that weren't reserve study items in the past that we use allowance funds. So those are some examples of things that we would use allowance funds. They're also used for emergency items. So if a well pump goes out at a golf course, that has to be replaced right away. That's how we water all of our golf courses. We pump all of our water out of wells, which is great. We don't pay for the water, we pay for the electricity to pump it out. But if something happens with one of those wells pumps, it's really expensive. Those go down in the ground 1,000 feet. They have pumps in them. They have pipes, and external and internal pipes that go down. Very expensive, and they're buried in the ground 1,000 feet. We can't look at them every day. We don't know what's going on with them. So we put allowance funds in there in case something happens to one of those. And I believe, how many do we have? 5 well pumps? 7. Oh, we have 7. We have 7, and one for each course. So anyway, so we put allowance funds in the budget in case something like that happens throughout the year. And we do go to facts and findings to the governing board if there's going to be an item that's over 50,000. So the governing board actually votes on those to make sure that we go through our proper channels of getting approvals for those projects if they're over 50,000. Okay, so I'm always the budget's nice, the numbers are nice, but what's the cash? Tell me what happens with cash, because at the end of the day, that's really what matters, right? So when we look at our budget, we look at the cash impact. In our budget, we've got to fund our reserve fund, and we have to pay for the capital improvement budget. Okay, so we have inflows and outflows. So when we look at the inflows for this budget, the operating budget summary, with a balanced budget, operating budget, we're gonna have cash inflows of 5.9 million in APFs. We're gonna have an estimated reserve fund allocation. We take a portion of our owner member dues. It's 7.5%, and we allocate that to our reserve fund. Okay, because APFs can't pay for everything. All right. So we've got APFs, we've got an allocation from our member dues of 1.2 million, and then we're anticipating 981,000 in investment income in our reserve fund. Okay, so this is an investment income in our reserve fund. So the total cash impact is 8.1 million in cash inflows. Now, we just talked about a capital improvement budget now, which is approximately $5.6 million. So we take that 8.1 million and we pay for the capital improvement projects. Okay, so 8 million in inflows, 5.6 million in outflows for capital improvement projects. That's going to create a positive cash flow to our reserve fund of approximately 2.6 million. Okay, and so here you can see what the inflows and outflows are going to be projected for this year, budgeted for next year, and then a projection moving forward, a 4-year projection after budget. And you can see we're going to have, over the next 5 years, we're going to have a $2 million cash outflow to our reserve fund. All right. Now, if we equate that to a reserve fund balance and compare that to our fully funded balance, that really tells us how healthy our reserve fund is. Because we could have 30 million in there but not be healthy, or we could have 20 million in there and be really healthy. It just depends on what we have to pay for. So we have something called our fully funded balance percent, and that tells us how healthy our reserve fund is. Policy says that we're not to go below 40%. So our reserve fund pays for all of our capital improvement projects. So all of the items on our reserve study, those 1,400 items, have about $115 million in total cash value. If we had to replace them all at once, that's what it would cost. All right. Now, there's something called the fully funded balance. And what that is, it's the used portion of that 115 million. So how much have you used of that asset? How much have you used of it? So our fully funded balance in this projected year is anticipated to be about 66 million, okay, of that 115 million in asset value. That means that we're 60% used up when it comes to those assets. We've used about 60% of them. But if we take our reserve fund, which is anticipated to be about 30.7 million in the budget, that tells us that our FFB percent is 47%. So we're 7% higher than our threshold of 40, which is good. That's good for us. For an association this size, that's very good. And we're in really good shape. But you can see, as we go through time, you can see the blips are where we have big irrigation projects that need to be paid for at our golf courses, because those are $5 to $7 million, depending on how big the course is and how much turf reduction we have to do at each course. So you can see that we're in really good shape when it comes to our reserve fund and our fully funded balance percentage. And the process of our budgeting process and forecasting this out helps us prepare for this and be ready for this and be in good shape. And we've done that traditionally from the beginning of time, which is why we're in such a great spot, and why we're so healthy financially. So I want to give some context on dues because, I know, it's not a popular thing. I mean, you can poll anybody. You can ask anybody who lives in any association. I don't care if it's a condo association where, there's, 100 condos, or a townhouse association. If you sent out a poll and said, who's all for dues increases? Nobody is. Okay, I'm not. I have an association too. I'm not for it, but there's things that happen with inflation that I talked about earlier, and wages and things like that we just a lot of times don't have control over that, and that creates increases in expenses and costs. All those different lines of business, all those various things that we provide here are all subjected to inflation and things that are out of our control. But if you take a look since 2021, okay, and you looked at the cumulative inflation rate, it's been 23% cumulatively inflation, which is, a historical period of time. But if you look at our dues increases from 22 to this proposed budget, it's been a 19% increase. So I wanted to show that because I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but I want you to know we're working hard to keep things in line with what's going on in the world. And we're 4% less than what's happened in the economy over the last 5 years when it comes to inflation. So we're working hard to keep those expenses down and to minimize the impact of increases to our association. And then you can see the different years here, the dues at the top, the year-over-year change, and then the percent increase in the inflation rate here for the last 5 years. Now, we have to compete as well in the world, and especially around us, there's a lot of retirement communities. So we wanted to show what the increases were at each of these facilities, each of these various retirement communities. By the way, we're the only one in the top 10 in the United States on this list, Sun City West. None of these others are on that list. But our rates per member, these are per rooftop rates. So if you want to get a comparable, you would take 1.7 times our rate, because we don't have 2 people per household, because some people live, alone in their home. So, but we have 1.7 members per rooftop. If you multiply that times 598, that would be our per rooftop rate. But if you take our rate at 598 and our APF fee at 5,400, you can see how we rate and what our increases have looked like this year that's being proposed versus the increases that were proposed this year at these other communities, and what our APF rate is and what the annual rooftop rate. For what you get here, the per member amenity experience and what you receive here for the rate that you pay, there isn't a better value. And that's one of the reasons why we're top 10, because of the value you get, the amount of amenities, the amount of services, 1 to 2 pools per rec center, 7 golf courses, a 30-lane bowling center. It's just incredible. Library, theater, goes on and on. So it's a great value, and we want to show that because that's important too, because we have to compete as well, and we're doing a really good job. Finally, top 10, 55 plus communities. We didn't contribute to the Retire Better Now. This is their survey. They didn't ask us for a donation or anything like that. This is their own independent study, and value plays a big role in this, and we feel like we're the best value. So anyway, that concludes the budget presentation. Turn it over to Mr. Erno.
Thank you, Cliff. So as you can see, there's a lot that goes into putting this budget together, a lot of thought. We don't take lightly dues increase by any means. We are constantly looking for ways to be more efficient, more effective. And, we had a lot of internal discussions and debates about the costs and how we can minimize those increases here and there. But the reality is costs go up just like everything else in the world. Costs go up, so it affects us as well. But that being said, it's important that we maintain the level of service and the commitment we have to the community to make sure that we are providing those services and amenities that you have come to expect and continue to have that not only for our current members, but members in the future. And to go rewind way back to the very beginning, I did not introduce myself. My name is Stephen Erno. I'm the general manager here. So for those of you that were keeping track, I apologize for not introducing myself as well. I do want to thank Cliff and his team and all the managers on the management team for helping to put this together. It's a big endeavor, but particularly Cliff and his team, you know, the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of actually putting the numbers together and all that. It's a lot that they go through every year, but they do a phenomenal job of doing that for us. So I truly appreciate it. And with that, we're happy to take any questions from anybody that might have some. Yeah. Do you mind going to the microphone for us?
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, first of all, thank you for the very detailed presentation. A little bit about my background. I'm a CPA, large corporate background, responsible for thousands of employees and big budgets. So I understand the pain of what you've gone through to put this together. I love living here in Sun City West, and I like that it's very high quality, so obviously I want to maintain that. But I do have some concerns with the budget, so I'll start with my first question. My first question relates to the strategic plan, the consultant hired to do that, and then the $250,000 line item for following that plan. And with all due respect, when I looked at the values and some of the strategic items listed on your slide, I could have just changed out the name of the company at the top, and that would have been my company. Every company in corporate America has those exact same values: to innovate, to be efficient, to be responsive, blah, blah, blah. So my question is, how do we, the owners here, benefit from this large expenditure?
Yeah, so first of all, to clarify, the strategic plan, the consultant that was hired to put together the strategic plan was at a cost of $24,500. Okay, and that was to facilitate the preparation of that strategic plan. To your point, yes, there are many things that are shared through a lot of different organizations. That is not where the bulk of the time was spent. It was not putting that together. The bulk of the time was spent on really developing what the direction of the organization will be, what the governing board would like as far as future projects, and coming to a consensus with that. Also, to clarify, the master plan, that $250,000 does not fund the strategic plan. Make that very clear. The master plan is a separate plan in itself. The $250,000 is for a consultant to prepare the master plan. The amount of time and resources that go into preparing such a plan are enormous. So with that plan, you're talking about multiple community surveys, you're talking about community meetings, individual focus groups, various working groups to really hone in on what does the community want in the future, and what do the incoming, those folks that are going to be retiring in the future, what are they going to want? With that, the consultant will prepare a very extensive master plan that will provide the potential for projects in the future. So that master plan then feeds the strategic plan. So as I mentioned before, the strategic plan every year will be reviewed and updated with the governing board at that time. So let's say, for example, in the master plan, it comes out the majority of the folks in the community really want to see, I don't know, a second story put on the library. I'm just throwing out a thing. Please, that is not a thing right now, just to be very clear. And that was what they said they wanted. And the governing board at that time said, yeah, you know what? I think we should do that. And we have the support from the community. They've all said we want that as well. That would then be put into on the strategic plan for the coming year, 1 to 3 years, to start figuring out for the staff, giving direction to myself as a general manager, so I can have staff begin to figure out what does that look like. Putting together cost estimates, putting together renderings, doing the legwork to start moving it in that direction. And that's just one example of many things that strategic plan, or excuse me, that master plan would be able to provide. It provides that long-term vision for the community as a whole. And it's derived from the input from the community, not from just the governing board or staff or anybody else. It really is from community input that then says, this is what we want to see going forward. So again, I think there's some confusion on some of on what that $250,000 is for. It is not funding the strategic plan.
Okay, but when I think about the 250, if that's anticipated to be spent every year, that's millions of dollars over the course of a reasonably short lifetime.
Clarify that it's not to be spent every year. The $250,000 is strictly the consulting fee to hire a consultant to prepare a master plan. There's not an ongoing cost with the master plan. Once it's prepared, now you have a document that gives direction to, or gives potential direction to governing boards in the future to say, here are options that we need to look at because this is what the community wants. Now, the cost of those options will be spread out however they're spread out. The $250,000 is not to fund any specific projects other than to fund the master plan itself. Think about if any of you have ever been, presumably you've obviously lived in cities or towns in your life maybe, and local governments put together, for example, the county right now is actually in the process of putting together their comprehensive plan. It is that type of plan. So, for example, we'll have a similar thing. They'll create a website where you can post comments on and maybe put comments on other people's comments as to what you would like to see for the community. There'll be like interactive maps saying, we should do this here, we should do that there. All that data, all that input, and you think about all the potential input, you have 28,000 residents, all that data has to be synthesized into a comprehensive document that provides potential projects for the future. So again, the $250,000 is literally the consulting fee for that to be done. It is a major undertaking. It cannot be undertaken by staff. It has to be done by a professional consultant firm. And there's plenty of them that do that type of work that will engage in that and to make sure that we get the right data to provide a plan for the future so we know where we're headed in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay, I have two other questions,
Sure.
if you would indulge me, please.
Of course.
There's been a lot of talk about, and charges, allegations that other comparable communities operate just as many facilities or more with fewer FTEs. I looked at your org charts here, and the number of employees honestly didn't seem that high to me when you broke it down into each little piece. But there were lots of layers of managers and supervisors. So my question is, how do you guys respond to that when a lot of owners here in the community think we have too many employees compared to, let's say, Sun City or the others?
Well, first I would say take a look at how, and I'm not knocking Sun City, but I would argue that we are much better run and much better condition than Sun City is. And that's not by accident, it's by staff and funding. I will also say that, you have 490 people, not FTEs, but people. Well, how many managers and supervisors does it take to manage those 490 people? You have to be able to, you have to have the layers in place to have managers, just like any of your past lives in the working world. You had layers of people, you had a certain span of control. You can't expect one person to manage 50 people, right? You have to have a span of control to be able to properly manage people to get the job done correctly. If you're not properly supervising and managing folks, we're not going to be efficient, we're not going to be productive, we're not going to get things done properly. So the notion that we have too many managers or too many supervisors, I would argue that's absolutely not true. We have the appropriate amount of managers and supervisors in order to manage our workforce so that they are performing their duties as they are expected to.
Last question is, I love living here, but I am concerned about some of our owners getting priced out of being able to live here. And that's because the dues keep going up, just like everything else goes up. And I understand things like property insurance have skyrocketed. Was there any consideration given to what can you do with the budget if there's absolutely no dues increase? That would mean you'd have to eliminate the nice-to-do projects, and you'd have to only do the must-dos. For example, I'm a golfer, and I love having nice carts out there on the course, but could they last another year and not be replaced this year? And like, are there things that you could have done to make a budget that was flat so we could go with no dues increase? Did you think about that?
Yeah, of course we do, yeah. I think Cliff probably would be a great one to answer because he's the kind of guy he's the one that does the major thinking on this and provides me with the what if scenarios in order to come to the conclusion. And again, I will restate dues increases are not taken lightly by us by any means. I recognize again what the impact it has on folks. I know that it's, in addition to everything else in the world, homeowners insurance, gas, groceries, you name it, it's just another thing that's gone up. What I would just remind folks is that all those things that affect you in your personal life, they affect us, our insurance, our price of goods and services. So it does definitely weigh heavy on us as we look at what does it look like for the increases, and we don't take it lightly. We do figure out ways to minimize that. But Cliff, you want to kind of maybe elaborate a little more on what that might look like?
Yeah, I guess also to be considered is the reserve study itself, the reserve fund that we have. That reserve fund has to be healthy enough to keep the place vibrant and competitive in the future. And that's the hardest one to really explain the importance of, because it's not something you see on a daily basis. It's the reserve fund has to be there for the future, and people sometimes don't look at it that way. They'll look at the balance thinking that there's enough money in the bank to take care of what we need, but ultimately we have to work out for the best interest of all of the community. And we have people that come to us and say, can you just double the dues? And then we don't have to worry about increasing anything else. Yeah, we do. We get all ends of the spectrum. So we have to balance that with the whole community. We really do. And we feel like we do a really good job at that. And we feel like the residents and the committees, and they hold us to that standard to do what's best for the community as a whole. And that's really what we're striving to do, and to return that value and stay competitive. It helps property values within the community. There's a lot of other really good byproducts of making sure that the place is really in great shape. And I always talk about there's what we need and what we can get by with. And I think there's communities that you can go live in that just get by. And we don't want to just get by. We want to do this in a way that we're satisfying those budget goals, and we're satisfying our values and our strategic priorities within the planning.
Yeah, I think all of us appreciate the quality of what we have here. I'm just suggesting, if you look at the last 2 years, the dues increase was twice the rate of inflation, if you're just looking at the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And everybody's struggling with the cost of everything going up. And I just was asking the question of, do we really need some of these things, or were they kind of nice to haves? Because everybody doing their home budget on their own has to do that kind of math. And I just wanted to make sure that we at Sun City West also did that same calculation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're fair questions, absolutely, and we appreciate them for sure.
Yeah, there was also and if you look at the reserve study, there's 1.2 million in reserve study assets that were up for repair and replacement in this budget, that we made those decisions on and decided that this is not something we need right now. It'd be nice, but we can get more useful life out of these, and it makes sense operationally in terms of operational expense to continue to do that. So within the budget, we do that. We do that within the budget. It's not the overall guiding principle to not increase dues, but the overall guiding principle is to only increase what you need to accomplish what your goals are. And so we do that within the budget. Absolutely, 100%.
Yes, sir.
Bill Weaver, 124087. My comment, I just have a few comments, and I don't necessarily like to see delaying things that have to be fixed. Golf carts, if they've reached their age, fix them. But what I'd like to see in these presentations, I'm sure the Budget and Finance sees it, and probably the board sees this, every item on the list that impacts the reserve fund and how it impacts it. Like, let me give you an example. The pin setters, I would assume that approximately $900,000 in repair, those items are listed in the reserve fund. We've been saving to pay for those when they die, and they're going to get paid for with money that's already been saved and it's already intended there. and then we'll continue to put in there for the next life of the other one, so it didn't impact it. When someone wants something new, like a new pickleball courts or something like that, the reserve fund pays for that, and it starts funding for the replacement in the future. That costs you $2 for every dollar spent, because the reserve fund takes, you have to put that back, plus you have to put new back. So if you want to see what really impacts the APF and your dues, it's the new capital that has to get paid back 2 to 1 for every dollar spent. So I think in these presentations, rather than putting everything together in the way they're done, which is clear to some degree or in one direction, it would be nice to see each item that says, this is a 1-to-1 reserve fund. This is something that's a continuation of reserve fund. This is a 2-to-1 reserve fund. So then you can see, you put in some new asset, it costs you $2 for every dollar spent. You know, so it would be nice to have the presentation for everyone in the audience to see what really is impacting our revenue sources. And I think that would be beneficial for the entire community.
Yeah, good feedback. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Patricia Leopard. Hi, Russ. Hi, Todd. My address right now is 12934 West Maplewood Drive. I lived here for 14 years and was extremely over my head involved in the association. Right, Russ? And then my husband died and I left, and I've just recently come back with the determination I was not going to do what I did before, because I was a crazy person with the association. Okay, so first question is, I can't find the bylaws on the website. Are they on the website?
They are. Yep. So if you go to board docs,
Yeah.
yeah, they're on there.
Okay.
We can show you.
I could not find them.
Sure.
I have the same concern that Fran has, which is a strategic plan. We've done this in the past, because I'm going back 20 years. Sorry, guys, this is what happens when you become an old fart. And but we have done this strategic planning repeatedly in the past. And actually, if I remember correctly, Russ, didn't the University of Arizona do one for us one year, not too long ago? Okay. So to pay this enormous amount, and all of us are being hit. Unfortunately, I moved into an HOA. Our HOA insurance went from $23,000 to $40,000. And a lot of the HOAs right now are looking at the possibility of just not having the insurance, but going, everybody basically doing the standalone. So the cost of living here, anywhere, is astronomical now, especially if you're on a fixed income, which is what I am because I spend all my money in Europe. Okay, so that is are we locked in, or are our feet in concrete with this so-called consultant?
We have not put it out to an RFP yet. So that amount that we have in there is the estimated cost that it could be less. I'm basing it on my prior experience on having done these plans at other communities. So at this point, no, it's basically put into the budget in order to move it forward. Okay.
Again, forgive me because I'm still in the
Sure.
past. But I just think we could do it. We still have let me ask you this. How many committees do we have now?
We have 5 standing committees? Yep,
Okay.
5 standing committees.
Okay, Russ, didn't we used to have 10 of them? Yeah, we used to have 10. And again, forgive me for going, that's what happens when you're old, you like to go back and reminisce. But we spent 2 years down in that room in the rec center, the R.H. Johnson Rec Center. There was a room down there. We spent 2 years down there revising the bylaws. And one of the things that we really tried to make sure that was maintained was the involvement of the association members. And our previous general manager got rid of several of them, and this happened while I was gone. Anyway, the bottom line is our budget and finance committee was extremely involved and extremely helpful. I don't know, you guys. I hope that you all are extremely concerned about this, and especially because to me it's a boondoggle, this strategic plan and the master plan and the money that is not only going to be initially expended, but what it's going to cost us over the years. This is something, I think, sir, that can be done within the association. We don't have to go outside to do it. Thanks for putting up with me.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Good morning. Dennis Vanderplow, 140090. I wasn't going to, but I have to also agree. The $250,000, the 20 is way too much for something that I have a hard time finding the ROI on it. I can understand the $24,000, but from what I can see, it's just a bunch of political niceties. You're not going to come out and say, we're not going to do anything and we're going to degrade services. So the start was okay, but I saw the same thing happen when I lived in Surprise. The city spent thousands of dollars on this grand plan, but they had streets to look at. They had growth to look at. They had schools to look at. They had firehouses to look at. They had police substations to look at. We don't. Del Webb started it. His master plan back in '78, that's the plan that we work on, that the board should work on. What he started with was good. Just the work that you folks are doing in maintaining it, what Carl Wilhelm did in all the properties that he spent so much time on, that's what made this Sun City West great. I don't think we need to spend $250,000 on someone to come in and tell us, here's what you need to do. We already know that. I've spent too many years working with special consultants coming in and telling how to run the business. It's not, I don't see the return on investment for $250,000. Okay, again, I'm in a Gemini HOA with 60 residents. We're going through the same, I took some notes. I have to go back to our residents to explain why we have to raise our dues to facilitate the aging irrigation systems we have, to answer to the increase in fertilize, the stuff that's small, but it's another increase that they have to look at. And what you've presented, what Cliff presented, is a fantastic budget for this size community. And I'm using that as the model for ours. But to spend $250,000 on a strategic plan that you don't need. Your strategic plan is Carl Wilhelm. That's fantastic what he was able to do for all those years. Use that, not to have some consultant. Thank you.
And again, just to clarify, the consultant, their purpose will be to gather extensive feedback from the community. It's not for them to come in and say, this is what you should do. It's for them to facilitate extensive feedback from the community on what do you want as members in the coming years. And you got to remember, you've been here for how long? I forget you said. Okay, so in 2002. When you came here in 2002, you know, at that time, we had the whatever we had as far as different clubs, different amenities, and those things that we had. Back then, we needed to make sure that we were providing those same facilities, what we'd want in the future for you as well. That's the whole idea. This is not about figuring out what are we doing today. It's what are we doing for the next 10, 15, 20 years, so that the folks that are coming here, their needs are being met. And to do a master plan or not is a policy decision from the governing board. They have said, listen, we want to make sure that we continue to meet the needs of the community, not only the current needs, but also those needs of those folks that are coming in, and then the folks that are going to be here, people that are moving here. Just Carl, for example, just moved as part of the residents. One of our residents now is retiring. What does Carl want for the next 20 years while he's here, 30 years? And I say Carl, I'm talking about a Carl. As far as, you know, at his age demographic and the time that he's going to be here in Sun City West, what is he going to want in the future? The only way to figure that out is through doing master planning and getting that community input and getting the data that supports, so that we know. So it's not just a matter of just a handful of folks making the decisions on what types of amenities and improvements should be in the future, but really, what does it look like from the standpoint of strategically thinking about what do we do in the future to make sure that we stay relative, we stay top 10 or better. We want to make sure that we are that. And so I understand the concerns with it, and I get it, and I'm not here to sell you on it. I'm telling you that this is something that is an important planning document for the future of the community that is going to take us into, you know, the next, again, 15, 20 years or so. Yes, sir.
My name is Dave Bennett. I've been looking for master plan and strategic plan ever since I moved here. How do you know how to spend your money if you don't know what the people coming in are going to want? And how do you get there efficiently? It's in the bylaws that you have to have master plans, strategic plans, and they haven't been done for 8 years under the old general manager, and it was something lacking. Maybe a long time ago, things were run well, and you knew where you were going, but the next 2 generations, they're not volunteers, they're not craft people, they're on their phones all the time. We have issues all the time with clubs getting bigger, ones getting smaller. We have a finite amount of room. How do you spend the money efficiently to meet all those needs and yet not waste money spending on something that in 10 years or 5 years, nobody's going to use anymore? So I applaud what's been done, and it was very timely, and you did very well in the length of time you've been here to get that 3-year strategic plan finished and start working on the master plan. And again, that $250,000 is a placeholder so that we can get started right away. And it is going to take a lot of data. I'm a scientist. You can't make any conformed decisions without gathering lots amount of data. It was like the last election. Only 6,000 people voted out of 28,000 people. You need to get a hold of more of that kind of people, more than 6,000 people, to make these decisions on where everybody wants to go, what they're doing now, what they're going to want to do, and what the next generations are going to need. Thank you.
Kathy Estes, 131671. I support the master plan. I don't think the $250,000 is an unreasonable amount to set aside for that. It's not only what we as our current community needs for the future and our property values, it's how do we continue to attract people to move into the community, because we are an aging community. We're over 40 years old. There are a lot of brand new homes, communities being built out there. How do we continue to attract those people into our community that protects our investment here? So.
Oh, sure, please.
Over the years, we have had multiple countries come into Sun City West to ask questions, to look, to see how we have done what has been done here. Okay, we have, how do I want to express this? There really isn't any place else to build anything. We are built out. Agreed, sir? Okay, so there isn't a place to build new. The idea is to maintain the wonderful amenities and facilities that we have. And this is why I think that this master plan is a boondoggle. Because Russ has, 25 years of records, Russ, of what it costs to maintain what we have here? Okay, so that's number one response, is we know what it takes to maintain what we currently have. Okay, and what we currently have is what draws people here. I don't know what the situation is financially with everyone in this room, but for me, money has become a real issue, especially since I came back here. And so the raising of dues, my homeowners association, my car insurance, my homeowners insurance, all of those things really add up. And I would assume that it would be that same way for anyone looking to retire or look into these communities. So my need or my concept is for our community to be affordable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Weaver again. I just have an additional comment. There is one other aspect that does impact the reserve fund, and it doesn't happen very often, but I should recognize Todd Patty. He actually retired 3 large assets, and so those are no longer listed in the reserve fund, and that actually has a positive view of that. So
sure.
that's the other thing. If you want something new in this community, start retiring the old, and that is your challenge. You find, I think one of the least used items might be the racquetball courts. You might have a big battle with those people to retire those racquetball courts, but do they have another use? Can you retire things whenever you want something new? What's the balance? What do you really need versus that? And where will you put that cost? An important thing is, as the last speaker mentioned, our population is not growing. It might be changing, but it's not growing. So we still are managing the same size community, the same number of people. Let's do the hard choices of what goes away when something new comes in, and how do we manage that? And then you'll know what's affecting your dues and what's affecting your the APF. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to first speak as my last moments as a staff member. So thank you, sir, for the kind words of the history that you've experienced for improvements at our rec centers. I came here in 2017, and the things that you've seen performed over the last 8 years are because of our previous master plan, and that ended in 2020. We've been a ship without a sail for the last few years, and our governing board has asked for leadership to create a master plan. This general manager is making that attempt, and I appreciate that. Now I'm speaking as a resident. I appreciate it because when I moved here 6 months ago, I had to take an evaluation of the history, and to some of you folks that have lived here for a long time, you've seen that average. In the years that we've had dues increases of 0, you have recognized that later on down the road, there were dues increases of greater than 4 and 5%. And that is just the reality of inflation. When I chose to live here, I had to recognize, can I afford to live here? What does 20 years from now look like at an average of 5% increase? Can I afford that? And I had to take that in consideration with my wife and I and our income. And it's the balance that we have to choose. So I hope to encourage you both as a responsible employee and now as a member that I believe that the course that we're doing here is a really good thing. And yes, this might not be for everyone as we get to our places of fixed income. But I promise you that we've done our best. A lot of moments over the last few years, things have been paused. There are a lot of improvements that still need to be made here. There are the potential improvements of a piece of blight like at the Kuntz Rec Center. We have an aged tennis facility that we cannot get to a place on how to repair and place that because there's this sense of information on what is the best decision. And that's what the master plan does. It takes your input and asks you, the people of this community, do you want it to be a refurbished tennis facility when we already have a beautifully refurbished tennis facility? Or should it be something else? Should it become a park? Should it become more pickleball? All these things have impact. And that master plan will draw that information out because you will be the voice to be able to put the green mark or the red mark on ideas that get brought forward for this community. I am young. I meet the qualifications of living here. And I have wants and desires from this community too. And some of them aren't here today. And that will be my ability to have my voice heard in those seminars, in those surveys. So I look forward to this master plan, and I thank you, Mr. Erno, for your leadership, and I appreciate my coworkers in the governing boards of the past and current. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was hoping.
Now what you think?
I'm excited.
You're excited, good. Tom Jones, 110390. And I have been wrestling with this thought for quite a while. I'm with the Prides, and one of the things Maricopa County has been emphasizing, and we're going to be working with them about reduced irrigation costs. And that got me to thinking about the 53 acres at the end of Deer Valley, because that's one of the areas that Prides takes care of is Deer Valley. And I seem to remember, and I could be wrong on this, but I seem to remember prior to being tried and put up for sale that the county could only sell it or dispose of it to an entity, and I think if I remember right, it would have been a charitable organization, or because at one time I believe Benavia was on the property on the El Mirage side, and I would hope that we could research with the local county and state to see if those 53 acres could be either purchased or donated to the community. I pulled up a tax statement, and the 53 acres looks like it's worth about a little over $1 million. And I think that would be an investment, if it could be handled, that $1 million investment for 53 acres, of course, along with that would be the integral structure of the streets and all the other items. But certainly it's worth looking into and getting with the county to work hand in hand with them in developing it as opposed to a private industry or a housing complex. Thank you very much. You guys are doing a great job.
Thanks, Tom.
Jack Leary, I'm the governing board president. I just told Tom I'm going to rain on his parade. The 53 acres to which he is referring are actually owned by Arizona Department of Transportation. They were originally, that space was originally intended to be an on-ramp to the 303. We have investigated the purchase of that land. The only way that we could purchase it is if we were one of several bidders. So, and ADOT is not going to put it up for auction. They said they didn't want to do that. In fact, with some of the discussions about the different entrance ramps and other things that they're looking at for the 303, one of the options is a ramp off of 60 onto northbound, a right side ramp, which may or may not bring that property back into use as a ramp. So, sorry, Tom. But yeah, that's not owned by the county, it's owned by ADOT.
All right, thank you, Jack. Okay, anything else from anybody? Sure. Very good, thank you. Well, listen, I really appreciate everyone coming out. I truly appreciate the comments and the feedback. We like that. We want you to come out and share your opinions and share your feedback on this. So we'll be here for a little bit longer. If you didn't want to go to the microphone, you have any other questions or anything, we're happy to interact with you and provide that feedback to you as well. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.